Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you very much for joining us today for how to measure your success as a customer success manager. We're really excited to have Julia and Krysta from Sparkcentral on the webinar today. They're both extremely knowledgeable and bring a wealth of experience with them. Just a few housekeeping notes before we get started. Feel free to tweet us and get this conversation going online with the hashtag CSMSuccess. Feel free to mention Amity or Sparkcentral. We'll be sending the recording at the end of the webinar. And feel free to ask any of your questions in the chat box on the bottom left of your screen. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Julia and Krysta.
Awesome, thanks so much. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Sparkcentral, let's just give you a little bit of a background so you have some context for our presentation. Sparkcentral is an enterprise customer engagement platform. We help our customers connect with their customers on social and mobile channels to resolve their issues, have meaningful conversations, and deliver delightful experiences to each and every one at scale. We've had a customer success team for a few years now at Sparkcentral. Boy, has our team changed a bunch in the last year.
That's right. We've quadrupled in size, and we now have a team made up of customer success managers, customer support managers, account managers, as well as a VP and director.
And we're hiring.
With that growth and newly defined roles and shifts in responsibilities came a big challenge. How does a CSM, AM, or anyone in our department know if they're successful? It's a really interesting question and one that I think many success departments struggle with. I mean, how can you quantify that customer's aha moment or that big win? For our team, it took a bit of time and tinkering with, but I think we finally have a great way of measuring success and setting goals. Our goal for this webinar is to share what's worked for us as CSMs and help you either get started measuring your goals or reevaluate the ones that you currently have in place. We're going to go through some questions that were raised when we were setting our goals, explain how we tackled them, and then at the very end, we'll share a good example of some CSM goals and have some time for Q&A. As you're listening, if you think of a question or you would like to revisit something we've discussed, please just type your question in the question box. Great, so let's get started. The very first question we asked, where to start? It's honestly a bit overwhelming when you're first trying to set your goals. So we decided to go with the top-down approach. Whether you're just getting started or reevaluating your current goals, the top-down approach is a wonderful way to make sure that your goals are aligned with your company's direction and grand vision. Let me explain a little bit about how this works. In the top-down approach, you start with the company's goals. The company's goals might be to become profitable, make X amount of dollars in revenue, and maybe even be acquired. From there, you move down to the department goals. And what you want to keep in mind here is what can the departments do to help the company reach its goals. So if the company's goal is to make X amount of dollars in revenue, the success department helps the company meet that goal by keeping the customers that we have and reducing churn. Then you go down and you think, how does each role play a part in the department goals? So how do support managers, customer success managers, and account managers all help to keep the customers we have? CSMs are responsible and should set their goals around training and onboarding, continued success, usage, and advocacy. Account managers are more focused on renewals and upsells, and support managers are really keyed into response time and other support-specific metrics.
Are there elements of community management, account management, or general support to be included in the customer success manager's KPIs? This is a really great question to ask yourself whenever you're either reevaluating or just getting started with setting your goals. We're really, really lucky at Sparkcentral that we have all three of these different roles. We've got account managers and customer support managers and customer success managers. But unfortunately, sometimes these roles can get condensed or distilled down into one or maybe two roles. So some of our audience today, some of you out there, has this kind of team structure, so we definitely want to make sure we address those metrics. One other thing to note is that sometimes community management metrics can fall into the customer success's KPIs. So if you're responsible for community management metrics like community, whether it's online or otherwise sentiment, customer discussions, or social media brand engagement, a marketing team, or you might be at a B2C company. But elements of community management come up a lot in customer success management. If you're unsure, ask yourself, do you need to reserve a portion of your goals for community management or customer forum work? For most established customer success teams, you're going to see account management and customer support roles, and those metrics may appear whenever the roles don't exist or if you roll them in together. So those are all important things to keep in mind when you're thinking of customer success department goals. Each one of these roles is integral to the customer's continued success. We're just lucky to have our nebulous customer success title, while account management and customer support are more traditional roles. Here's how they're all different but important. As you can see, the account manager is important because they are playing a part into renewals. They're looking at expansions and growth opportunities and partnership opportunities, marketing, any kind of collaborative conversation happening from a strategical conversation or point of view. That goes through account management. And with customer support, you're seeing that they're trying to mitigate risk to reduce the amount of revenue that could be lost through customer support interactions. They're very focused on product usage, and ultimately the end goal is to have customers who are feeling supported enough to renew. And then if you're strictly customer success manager, you will have metrics like usage. Are your customers using your product? Customer support focusing more on are they able to use it? Customer success focused on how are they using your product? Working on developing that account maturation with the account managers to make sure that as you're growing, your customers are growing as well. And we're also looking at customer satisfaction and adoption in general. So at the root of this is the reason why we get out of bed in the morning. It's our customers. So enough about us for now. Let's talk about how they're feeling.
Should you use CSAT to help measure your goals? Absolutely. At the end of the day, as the customer success manager, you are directly responsible for your customers' happiness and satisfaction. Whether you are B2C or B2B, the data that you can gather from measuring CSAT is invaluable. We recommend that you start sending out CSAT surveys as soon as the customer finishes training and onboarding. This scoring feedback will give you insights into a couple of things. One, you'll be able to see where you can personally improve on your training technique. And two, it will allow you to correct or provide any additional training or resources if there's some sort of educational gap. After the initial CSAT onboarding survey, you should develop a regular cadence of sending those out. This could be 30, 60, 90 days. You just want to find the perfect balance so that you stay up to date on how your customer is feeling, and at the same time, you're not bombarding them or annoying them with survey after survey. Be sure to survey both users and stakeholders. You want to make sure that all folks who touch your product are having a very positive experience.
And we'll define stakeholders as people who have control over the renewal. They should feel like they're getting their money's worth and that there's a strong business value in using your software. So if you conduct a survey and have a low CSAT score with your stakeholders, you need to take action immediately. This is a huge red flag and should be addressed right away. And we define users as anybody who is not a stakeholder who's using your product. And never forget that the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So if there are customers who aren't feeling satisfied or who are frustrated, they could damage your relationship with your stakeholders. Delightful experiences lead to improved team member productivity, which helps your customers save money. Don't freak out because every time that you receive a low CSAT with a non-stakeholding user, but do look into it. Do investigate as you're able to understand if there's an easy way to increase CSAT there. And in some cases, it's going to be as easy as continuing education. If you start seeing that many users from the same customer brand are submitting low CSAT scores, that could indicate a workflow issue or an opportunity to impact satisfaction in a positive way as a customer success manager. You'll also want to track CSAT over time. If a previously self-reported satisfied customer begins to submit a diminished CSAT scores, know that as their customer success. These numbers will do more than predict churn. They inform the company about the CSM's effectiveness and can allow for course correction and workflow improvements. That's why it's important to include those in your goals.
How does product usage play a part in customer happiness and ultimately your goals as a CSM? So in addition to CSAT, how customers use your product and how they adopt your product is really telling on how successful you are as a CSM in training and continuous education. So usage allows you to read between the lines. We all have those customers who tell you they're actually doing something, but when you look into it, you can see they're not actually really doing that thing or using the product as they say they are. So tracking usage will allow you to increase adoption of key features. You'll be able to guide your customer on aspects of the product that they might be missing out on or underutilizing. It will also allow you to track usage trends to predict churn. Were your customers once using functionality that they are now not? Usage data will be really telling for that. Thirdly, it will increase renewals and expansions. If you know when your customer is ready to grow with your product through understanding how they're currently using it, you'll be able to drive some real business value. And finally, it's so great to be able to provide insights to product and engineering. They want to hear how people are using your product. Maybe if there's some short-term bug fixes they can put in place or long-term planning and design, they want to hear about it, and usage data really helps.
How are your goals and your customer's goals related? As a customer success manager, your customer is your compass. If your customer is already doing a really great job, maybe they have a goal of wanting to get promoted. You could actually set a goal to get your customer promoted and bake that into your metrics for the quarter as long as you both have a reasonable understanding of what that would take. Does your customer need help with the basics? Make sure that continued education is part of your quarterly objectives. Although customer goals are not always CSM goals, they can be a good indicator of that you are meeting or excelling your goals. You can use your customer's goals as a guide when evaluating your own. So we've got an example of Sparkcentral customer goals in general. Their goals are related to social customer care. So here are some examples that we hear from almost every team with which we work and how we've translated those into CSM goals. A mistake teams often make when initially considering customer success manager goals is to lump them under customer goals. That's not effective because it only shows how well your customer is doing, not how well your customer success manager is doing. This limits potential career growth and doesn't help the CSM take ownership of their own work. As the account's customer success manager, your responsibility is to drive adoption and product usage, to become an integral part of your customer's workflow, to improve their day-to-day experience, and to make their job easier. This is the goal of technology, right? Its purpose is to enable, not complicate. If you have a strong grasp on what your customers see as success, you can take a step back and quantify how their goals play into yours. As a customer success manager, you have to translate these customer goals into CSM goals. If your customer is trained on the product, is using it, and is satisfied, and is growing, you will have better odds of success. If they are lacking in one of these fundamental categories, they will fall short of their goals. At the end of the day, these metrics are not the same for every customer, but they are a great framework for every CSM. If a customer is experiencing issues reaching their goals, place a higher emphasis on that CSM goal or goals that have the most impact on helping your customer. And while your goals are tied directly to your customer's goals, like if a customer feels they're unsuccessful, then they're at a high risk of churning, which is the thing we want to prevent most as a customer success manager. Your CSM goals must be tactical and informative to your own performance. So how do we hold CSMs accountable for nurturing their accounts and ongoing training? In order to keep track of your efforts, you'll need to monitor your customer's health over time and also in order to not generally go insane with the amounts of responsibilities that we have as CSMs, you'll need to invest in some kind of software to stay organized. For teams just starting out, that could be as basic as a spreadsheet or products like Trello or Asana. More mature teams will require better metrics, more robust features, and a scalable product. We use a customer success software that allows us to keep track of each customer and where they are in their success cycle. We define what happy customers typically do within our platforms and have clear processes for CSMs to follow to foster engagement, adoption, and growth. I read a report recently by Tatango that revealed only 36% of customer success teams are using a customer success platform. Now, that's a significant increase over the 25% that we saw in 2015. It's still really low. And if you're not tracking your customer success, how can you track your own success as a CSM?
Should we create metrics around customer advocacy, their willingness to refer new business, and or participate in marketing efforts? Some teams track the number of reviews or customer case studies that they provide to marketing teams. This is usually a team-wide goal that each CSM plays into a smaller scale. For example, if a team handling 300 customers has a goal to get 25% of customers to write a positive review on a site like TrustRadius, CSMs might be responsible for getting a certain percentage of their customers to participate in some sort of customer advocacy. This could be case studies, reviews, etc. Or they might have the individual numbers based on customer type or numbers of customers built into their quarterly goals. In addition to reviews, referrals, and case studies, you could also look at metrics such as NPS here. Here's an example of how CSM goals can be outlined based on what we've covered today. So you'll see we have continuous growth and how that's broken down into training and onboarding, CSAT onboarding score, complete customer cycles on time, percentages around adoption and usage, then down to quarterly customer-facing objectives. So you want to, go visit those strategic customers, maybe make 5 or, however many visits is, makes sense for your team. X number of quarterly business reviews. Then you get down into quarterly growth goals. So that's kind of what we were just talking about in regards to advocacy. And then a personal growth skill. So that's really unique to our team. They want to encourage us to, seek out other knowledge and that kind of thing.
Yeah, and we're really lucky. Our personal growth objectives could be anywhere from learning to code or reading a particular set of books or attending a conference, something where we're able to then advance our careers and make sure that while we're as devoted as we can be to our customers, we're continuously improving our ability to help them. If you already have goals, we hope this has been informative and gives you a great place to start. If you're reevaluating your current goals. If you're just starting out, best of luck, and we hope this was really helpful. We're very excited for you.
If you have any questions about customer success metrics or what we're doing with customer success here at Sparkcentral,
especially if you're interested in applying for our open CSM role, yes, we are hiring.
Don't hesitate to reach out. I know several of you guys have been typing in questions, but if we run out of time, also feel free to link up with us on LinkedIn or hit us up on Twitter.
So we've got a couple of different questions to address now in our Q&A section. We've got a question from Chris. How do you define the difference between account manager versus customer success? So like we talked about a little bit earlier, the account manager is more in charge of the contractual details of that customer experience and that customer journey. Our account managers will create business plans with our customers, and then the CSMs are there from day one to help with onboarding and training and more strategic thinking outside of how do you use our platform. It's also what other business value can you get out of our knowledge, our platform, and the other contacts that we have as well. Do you have anything to add to that one? All right. Let's see, we've got some more. We've got a question from Lisa. We have all 3 roles with CSM being created within the last 12 months. Awesome. Account managers are feeling detached from the customer with the new alignment as CSMs are having more frequent interaction. How do you manage the interactions to ensure the AMs retain their strategic value and relationships within the account?
Okay, I'll take that one. So here at Sparkcentral, we work really closely with our account managers. We very much feel like a team. So a lot of times, we'll pull in account managers into those, quarterly or even monthly check-ins with the customers. If anything, it gives them a better pulse on what's going on in the account, and that way they also kind of stay in the loop as well. I think that answers it. Anything to add, Krysta?
Yeah, I think that's where having a really good customer success software comes into play as well. As far as the account managers feeling out to not on every single call or every single email thread, view what's been going on with those conversations in the customers over the last however many days or months. And we work really hard to differentiate the customer success managers and account managers to our customers so they know who to reach for what, and making sure that support has its own role as well. We don't want to get a support call at 11:30 p.m. on a weekend that we might not see for another, till the morning if there could be support available immediately.
Cool.
All right. Scott asks, who handles any product development or enhancement requests? Does that come through CS or account management?
It actually comes through both in our team. The way we typically work it is if we are gathering feedback from a customer on a call or via email, it's basically whoever it gets to first, we'll import that into our system that we use for feature requests. It's really easy to use, and
yeah, the guiding light is that we just have to get those customer requests in front of our product team as quickly as possible so that they can understand the impact it would have to their workflow as it stands now, or they can understand what it is that our customers are looking at moving into in the future. So the policy is, regardless of where you hear it from or who you are hearing it, you have to get that information to product. Our customer support team even passes it along when they hear it in tickets as well.
Cool, great question. All right. The next question is, what does CSAT stand for? Great question. CSAT stands for customer satisfaction. And it kind of feeds into the next question, which is, what's the main difference between CSAT and NPS? CSAT is it's for short term, how the customer is feeling, maybe after a certain interaction. That's why we recommend that you do it after training. You want to get their fresh feelings on how the training went, how the interaction was. Whereas NPS is more of a predictor for long-term happiness and advocacy. So they're slightly different, but they work hand in hand together to help predict the health of the customer.
All right. What do you use to send out and keep track of your surveys and results? This has been kind of an ongoing process. We've used everything from Google Sheets to SurveyMonkey to a number of different other products. I think what matters more than how you're sending it out, it's that you're keeping track of your surveys and results. Those should exist. Those results should exist somewhere outside of whatever tool or platform you're using, just so that you have that customer information specific to the customer and not specific to just a form or a survey that was sent out. Again, this is where that customer success software comes into play. If we're able to gauge CSAT, then we can put that into our own customer's profile and watch those trends over time.
And what we're using now is we use Bluetrick to send out those surveys. But like Krysta was saying, we keep track of it in our customer success software, as well as a spreadsheet so we can track change over time.
Awesome. How do you know which key features your customers use and find the most value in? So that one comes down, that's a great question, Scott. That is a little bit up to your engineering team to help with. So we love products like Heap and Mixpanel that are able to help us get insight into where are clicks happening and what's our customers' regular behavior, anticipated behavior. But a lot of that comes down to what can your engineering team actually provide you as far as data points go, and how are you integrated there. So I would recommend checking out a product like Mixpanel. I really love their interface. And see if you can start finding parts of the product that you're a customer success manager for, and see if you can start tracking, the indications of a positive, healthy account versus the clicks and activity that's happening for accounts that are considered in the red.
How do you track customer goals? Where are they stored, and how often do you revisit them / discuss them with customers? So this is a great question. We keep track of all of our customer goals within our customer success tool, like our platform that we use. And we keep those, I'd say we keep those readily available. It's really good to review quarterly. That's what we typically like to do. Or, if it's a new customer, we'll check in after the first month or maybe 2 months to make sure that we're on track to help those folks meet the goals. But I would say mostly quarterly is what we aim for. And then we reevaluate if we're being successful. If not, how can we best help our customers meet those goals?
Yeah, and every time that you get a new point of contact, it's good to bring up those goals again and to reevaluate to make sure that they're in line with the previous point of contact you had and that everybody's still on the same page for what qualifies as the customer's success.
What were the products you just recommended for tracking CSM success?
So I know that Amity is a really good software for tracking the life of your customer. Client success and Tatango are also options that are out there. Outside of that, Julia and I both use Trello. We've got some spreadsheets as well that we will rely on as far as reporting back to or communicating with the rest of our team. And that just has taken a little bit of extra work. So a lot of the time we're able to pull reports from our customers and see our impact as CSMs there.
We also use Salesforce as well. That, our customer success tool hooks in with Salesforce. So it's really nice that we're able to give visibility into sales and vice versa. So we know if there's a new customer coming, what the details are, what their goals are, and they can keep track of, how well we're doing as well.
All right, we're going to get through as many of these questions as we can. We've got over 40 left. So let's
keep them coming, folks.
How do you separate CSAT scores for CS versus satisfaction scores related to product defects, upgrade processes, etc.? Yeah, so the CSAT scores for customer success versus, NPS scores related to how is your product doing in general, those are definitely collected by different people or different means at different times. So NPS is something that we'll survey our customers on a regular basis, that we're asking about frequently to everybody who's in the account. While CSAT is something that you can issue a CSAT survey to the folks involved in the initial training and onboarding, occasionally throughout the relationship, mostly to stakeholders. And then the rest of the CSAT metrics, when we're talking about user versus stakeholder, we're going to be collecting over time within the product whenever possible.
And those and that's been one of the most powerful tools that we've seen. If we're getting a lot of feedback like, hey, your site is slow, or hey, like this is happening, it's a really powerful tool to then go back to product and engineering and say, hey, this is what we're hearing, and we have the data to prove it.
Yeah, and it's also actually surprisingly effective when it comes to diagnosing issues for support. So sometimes you'll hear about something for the first time through a CSAT score. So you do want to have that available with transparency within your organization to best serve your customers. So how much should renewals or growth be linked to CSM goals? This one's a little challenging because there are multiple ways of thinking about it. We've heard from a lot of people that there are, the breakdown between account management and customer success really defines how much should renewals or growth be linked to CSM goals. We've kind of taken a step back, and we don't have a lot of renewal or growth metrics linked to us as CSMs. Those are more attached to our account managers, and they're able to run the contract. As a CSM, our goal isn't necessarily on a day-to-day basis to say, let's expand your account, let's grow your users. what we're accountable for is recognizing opportunities and making sure they're in a really, really healthy place to be able to grow and to expand. And we're more of that natural growth and expansion that happens. If you have a really solid workflow, you can start talking about ways to improve the workflow. If you see that the team of customers you're working with is growing, then that's a great opportunity to tap your account manager on the shoulder and say, let's get you into this conversation and talk about if they have enough licenses or if they need a new aspect or product or feature.
Great question.
Awesome. How many accounts does each account manager handle?
Well, this differs, and it will be different for each company. It depends on the size of your customers. Are you like small, medium, or enterprise? How is your process? Is it more hands-on? Are you more hands-off where your account managers or CSMs check in, quarterly, yearly, just when the contract is up, that kind of thing? At least for us, our account managers handle about 25 accounts. And that's what's worked for us. We're a little bit more hands-on. We like to be really involved with all of our customers, so that's about the number that works for us.
Awesome. What are some common ways of tracking customer usage in the SaaS product? So I think we touched on that a little bit earlier, talking about applications like Mixpanel, where you can actually see user activity and where that's happening within an application. Other ways to do that, if you don't have the capability of plugging into an API right away, would be to stalk your customers. Look at their instance of your product, go watch what they're doing, become a customer yourself of theirs, and experience it as much as possible. Talk to your customers, ask them what they're doing, and make sure that you're not just guessing. We learn a lot through just being so nosy and so in our customers' business that they can't help but tell us a little bit how they're using it. And then we also have reporting within our own product that allows us to see, agent-specific or user-specific, as well as account-wide metrics where we can start seeing those trends over time. All right.
Carla said, great talk. Well, thank you, Carla. How do you circulate customer surveys, and how do you optimize response rate?
So like Julia was talking about earlier, we use Bluetrick for in-app surveying, and we are really happy with them. They give you an NPS option, or that's what we have set up right now, with the ability to comment as well, which is like what we're talking about, where we hear, sometimes product feedback or customer support requests. And we issue this on a regular cadence broadly. That's how we optimize response rate, is we're waiting until you're actively in the product, using it, and then we just ask you one simple question and move on from there. We want to make sure it's as easy as possible to get those answers. We're not sending out emails or calling on the phone or sending long surveys when it comes to the general NPS surveys. For the training-specific one, you can handle that differently. For that, you optimize response rate by saying, I need a response here in order to complete your training. Because that's what I'm graded on as a CSM. And just be completely transparent with them. Say, this shows what I can do better and what I've done well, and it's just going to continue to help you if you give really deep, honest feedback.
And we've increased response rate for that one too, at least for the onboarding CSAT, is having it customized so it's coming from our VP of success. Having that personal touch shows that he's invested in their success as well as our success, and plus we find people are more inclined to answer them.
Yep. All right, what's the best approach for creating KPIs for hybrid positions? For instance, CSM, AM roles. We are a smaller company and do both. And sometimes we focus too much on selling. So that's a great question, Anthony.
I've come from two smaller companies where that was very much the case. I think what you really need to do then is think about what are their day-to-day responsibilities. So they're probably in charge of training and onboarding, customer satisfaction, ongoing success, as well as renewals and upsells. So I would focus mostly on the training and onboarding, continued success, and then renewals and upsells, and have those be your pillars and then kind of go from there.
Yeah, and this is where CSAT and NPS surveying can really help you out in recognizing where are your customers needing a little bit more TLC. If they feel like contractually they're doing fine, that the business part of things is handled, but that your team only cares about selling and not about their actual success, CSAT could be an indication of that. So you want to make sure that you're casting as wide as a net as you can with getting feedback and information from your customers, and then taking that to your higher-ups or to the rest of your company and saying, our customers love us, they love our product, but they feel like that the team that's supposed to be there to help and support them is just there to make money from them. And that can be kind of scary whenever you're using a new software just out there on your own.
And you could also weight those goals a bit differently. Mm-hmm. So you could weight the more CSM ones more heavily. So that way, that CSM AM person knows that that's what's really more important to you. Obviously, you want upsells, renewals, that kind of thing. But if you're having the kind of like, too heavy on the selling portion, I would definitely weight the goals a little bit differently.
Awesome. All right. So could you speak to the adoption timeframe and how to align expectations? Customers will use software when they can. Account managers want it now. How to deal with it?
So we're very transparent with our customers. We have a very clear rollout, training, onboarding schedule, which we share with them. These are the what's the word I'm looking for? These are like the main things that you should hit when you're training and onboarding, as well as, into the first year of your adoption. So we make it very clear this is what successful customers do. You want to be successful? Let's help you get there. Anything else, Krysta?
Yeah, for adoption time frame, I don't think it's necessarily one and done. There's definitely the training and onboarding aspect that's very crucial to your customer, one, being able to log into your software and to use it. But after that adoption is continuous. So if you have a new feature or an enhancement, are your customers aware of it? Are they using it? Because it really sucks for product and engineering to build something and then nobody use it. So that's our job, is to make sure that everything that's being worked on is actually in the hands of the customers, that they understand that it's that how it can help improve their business, and then also that is when we go back to product and say, here's what customers want more of, and here's what they aren't using actively.
The next one is, if you don't use any customer success tools or software, how do you track customer goals and success? And this is a great question. And like I said, coming from a smaller team, I'm very, very much familiar with this problem. So what I did when I was at a smaller company is I used a spreadsheet. So I had all of my customers listed out. I had a section for their goals. I had a section for, the last time I checked in, what are some of the notes for my last check-in, and then any next steps that I needed to take, whether it was follow up when this feature is built, follow up with, X, Y, and Z. That really helps me stay organized, and also it helps me when I was reporting out to other folks in my company, this is what's going on in CS. This is how many times this feature has been asked for, and that kind of thing. So I think a good old-fashioned spreadsheet can do wonders.
Yep. All right. Can you give us a few examples of adoption activities that customer success managers use in order to increase adoption of key features? Yeah. So I think what works really well for our team in particular is to inform our customers generally of enhancements and new features that are coming up. We provide them with as many training resources and instructionals as possible in advance to that feature being available. Then as CSMs, our role is to, as we talk to these customers individually, to make sure that they've received that message, that they've understood it, that they've understood not just what the feature does, but how it's important to their business. And then ask them, if they're not using it, how can we help them start using a feature, or why do they not want to use one? Sometimes you can find that your customer is shooting themselves in the foot, and you have to keep just showing them examples of how their competition is doing something really well, or how they can better prove that ROI of whatever they're using your software for.
I also see, at least our customers love to hear how our other partners are using that functionality or feature. So being able to share use cases from some of our other customers, best practices, also really drives adoption.
Okay, so how do you handle customers who are hard to get a hold of in terms of filling out surveys? Do you find it hard to collect this data? So what we do is we try to take advantage of a really strategic moment in time when we are right in front of the customer, whether it's virtually or physically. At the end of training, there's a moment for us to say, hey, you'll be receiving an email. It's important to my job that you fill out this survey and provide feedback. If you don't want to fill out a survey, you can just email my VP and let him know how you did or how I did. But as far as handling customers who are hard to get a hold of, just taking the opportunities when you already have their attention to then say, we need your feedback here.
And luckily, we don't run into this problem too often. We have really great partners here at Sparkcentral, and they all seem very open to giving us their feedback, which is great. I know that's not always the case.
All right, so we've got when operating 3 distinct functions, account management, customer success management, and customer support, how do you ensure customer engagement is efficient and not overloading customers with different roles, contacting them with each with their own priorities? So support is more reactive than proactive. It's always great whenever support can be proactive and say, hey, here's a heads up. We do that less on a one-to-one basis and more on a one-to-many basis. So then it leaves for us account management and customer success management, the two areas of the department that customers are most frequently in touch with.
So what we do is typically for any new customer or any customer where there's been a change in AM or CSM ownership, we'll have a call with that customer and be very intentional and clear about who does what. Account managers will be your person for renewals, roadmap items. CSMs will be your go-to person for workflows, strategy, day-to-day engagement, that kind of thing. So we're very clear on the call, and we haven't run into a lot of problems, but I can see how that could get a little bit confusing.
Yeah, and one other great thing that is probably just a culture thing at Sparkcentral, but I've seen it happen at other companies as well. We're very open with each other. So if I get a message as a CSM that needs one of my AMs on it, I'll just reply with them copied, and then they can help take over that conversation. We do a lot of re-educating for people who maybe don't pay attention, or if they are a new point of contact, to say, hey, great question. We definitely want to help. Here's the person you need to talk to about that. As a reminder, I'm here as your CSM to let you know how you can best do what you're doing today, and your account manager is going to be there for your business needs and what's coming down the pike. All right. Dave asked, was that last slide a breakdown of how you are measured for bonus? Are you held accountable for a customer renewing or churning? So that's not, we didn't include any bonus or
compensation or anything
like that. We avoided that for this presentation because that's so drastically depending on how your department is made up and how long your CS team has been around, what kind of works you're doing. As far as could that be used for measuring a bonus? Yes. You could say if you hit all of your goals, then you are eligible for a bonus. As far as customers renewing or churning, that is something that we are held accountable for as a department. The idea is that if we're doing our jobs really well as customer success managers, we'll mitigate the amount of potential churn or any kind of contraction. And we do play a part in that renewal. However, account management owns the majority of getting that renewal as far as what those specific goals and metrics are around. However, if an account manager says, I was unable to renew a customer, or they churned because of their relationship with the customer success manager, then I think we would probably begin reevaluating that, but we're really lucky in that that has never happened. With respect to the CSM goals, are they all individual goals or are any team? So I think that's asking, are the CSM goals individual or team goals?
We have them set up as team goals. That's just what works for us. I mean, you could do individual goals. So for example, if different CSMs were managing different types of accounts, their goals might look slightly different. So, you know, one of the goals for the CSM was number of strategic visits to a customer. If you're managing all enterprise customers, that might be more, whereas if you're managing more small business, that might be less. It kind of just depends on how you've broken down your team. But for what we showed you, that was our CSM team goals.
Yeah, and the personal growth aspect, it has been a really great way for us to define our own personal goals while still falling under that blanket of here as a CSM is what I need to get done on a day-to-day basis to be successful every quarter. Does the decision whether to put in place each of these separate functions relate to the size of business? Would smaller companies benefit from merging, for example, AM with CSM? So Julie and I have both been in the position of being account manager, customer success manager, hybrid, whether by this title or a different title. I think for me, what I've seen a lot of is smaller companies do combine the two, and that comes down to a human resources standpoint, not any fundamental ideology that they should be merged, but just what do you have headcount for? What kind of budget do you have?
Mm-hmm. So I think definitely the size of the company plays a huge role in that.
I'm not 100% sold that smaller companies would benefit from merging account management with customer success management, but I think that's what happens a lot of the time in order for them to be able to stay within resources. How do you handle the helplessness which comes when your efforts fail to make any impact due to external factors like recession or downturn in industry? So that's when it comes, that's when being your customer's expert and their industry expert is really important. The point of customer success manager goals are whether to say you are effective or you are not effective at your job on a daily basis, and at the end of the quarter review that. But if you're noticing that there is some bigger problem, if there is, you know, a recession or some kind of downturn in industry, then that's up to you to communicate to your team in advance to these customers churning, or as soon as they start to churn, to say, here's a trend we've noticed. As your customer success manager, I have my finger on the pulse of the customer, and I can just tell that things aren't going well from an industry standpoint, and here's data that I have to back that up.
And if you can see that happening, it's really great, and it's a great opportunity as a CSM to drive home that value even more so than maybe you normally would have. So really show them why they're using your software and drive value that way.
All right. Let's see. Do you find that some account managers migrate towards the operational activities, or could this be driven by a lack of understanding the roles? Example, clear job descriptions. So I think sometimes account managers, I think yes, it depends on your individual company's goals and job descriptions that have been set out so far. For us, there's no question of our account managers more operational than customer success managers for one reason or another, because we just know what we're all responsible for. We have outlined these goals and what we can individually do to play into that teamwork aspect of getting our customers to be successful. I think within account management, you start to have more operational focused roles as you expand that account management team, to have a strategic account manager, to have a technical account manager. But fundamentally, the goal of an account manager is to renew and grow that contract. And the customer success manager is to ensure that your customers are successfully using your software above and beyond just logging in. All right, so how do your account managers, support agents, and CSMs work together and maintain a transparency both internally and with clients?
So this is where our customer success software comes into play. Everybody has access to it. We can see all integrations. We have, and we have all of our emails, all of our interactions going into that software. And I guess through that, we also have all of our customer success cycles and steps. And like I was saying earlier, this is what we actually share a lot of this with our customers. So there's so much transparency. They know what's going on. All of our team knows what's going on, and they know which steps they have to take next in order to be the most successful.
All right, and we're going to do a couple more questions before wrapping up today. Let's see. Once you have metrics, what best practices or recommendations do you have to handle this information to define actions around the account? For example, having meetings with account manager or support are recommended to define action plans, or up to which extent should you share these metrics with your own customer? So as far as like breaking down who contributes to what, like we mentioned earlier, we just make it really clear to our customer. If you have questions about what's coming down the road, what your contract is, anything that's more on that business needs side, please get in touch with your account manager. Otherwise, we're here for your day-to-day, what's currently available in the application, how to best facilitate usage of that, but making sure that the customer knows that at any point they can put both of you on an email. If they don't know who to reach out to, they can. And then we have created what we consider significant milestones or touch points that need to happen with customers throughout their journey from support and account management and success. And we make sure that we're going through and doing those. So there's a little bit of like scheduled work, some reactive work, but once you have your handle on what you're doing with customer success, you can start getting into those proactive opportunities and taking on a little bit more of a role in your customer's day-to-day. And then they'll start coming to you for things, and you can start redirecting them as needed to account management or as to support.
So the next one is, it sounds like you're making good progress to advance customer success at Sparkcentral. What do you see as the next big thing? How do you innovate from here? Well, at least in our company, I know, Krysta, you were heading up that new initiative for strategy, and do you want to dig into that a little bit?
Yeah, so one thing that we've definitely focused on a lot at Sparkcentral recently has been the opportunity to go above and beyond for our customers. So some of them are at the point where they would be able to bring in consultative teams. Others are still very hands-on and trying to make things work as best as they can. That's where our CSMs have been really, really lucky in that we've gotten to be a fly on the wall for many of our customers. And we're part of their teams now, so we're able to say, hey, let's go sit in a conference room for 2 days and knock out a project. Or I'm going to come by and visit you, and let's make sure that we meet up with some important stakeholders and talk about how you're doing amazing work. And a big, big, big part of what we see coming up next with customer success in general is the focus on the proactive and not just on that reactive, and really getting in to be part of your customer's team. Another big thing with that is going to be enablement and making sure that your customers don't only understand how to use your product, but why it's important to use your product and how are they going to drive business value from that. And then we'll have one last question before we wrap up today. And let's go with who defines the goals for a new account? Sales, account management, or customer success management? Our customers actually define the goals for a new account largely.
Well, and it does start with sales. So when a salesperson is going in, selling the customer, they find out what's really important to them. And then from there, as a CSM, when we're doing training and onboarding, we cater the training and the onboarding and implementation based on those goals. It's a good conversation to have again once the account manager is brought, once it switches from the sales hand to the account manager's hand. It's a good conversation to have again just to make sure that the customer success manager, and account manager are all on the same page.
Awesome. So thank you so much for your time today. Matthew, we'll let it go back to you. And if you guys have any more questions or want to continue the conversation, you can reach out to us on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever.
Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julia and Krysta. This is fantastic. I mean, we have so many questions still left unanswered. I mean, it just shows the level of engagement. And honestly, this was fantastic. So we're really pleased with everything. I hope everybody enjoyed it. Feel free to continue sending in your questions, and we'll see. Hopefully, we can get them answered. I know Julia and Krysta are very busy, but we'll see. So once again, thank you. Just going forward, we have another webinar that's upcoming on August 10th. We're going to be having it at 7 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time. It's called 10 Best Practices for Calculating Your Customer Health Scores. It's going to be hosted by Paul Philp, our CEO, and that's going to be on August 10th. So feel free to register. Visit getamity.com/resources, and there should be a CTA there to register. And other than that, thank you very much for being here. Honestly, your engagement was fantastic, and looking forward to more webinars in the future.